Quebec City has always had a rich English language cultural scene. Yet, English-speaking personalities often fly under the radar. This short documentary series will put them into the spotlight by presenting different angles of this vibrant and close-knit community. This episode's angle, music, takes us from folk to classical, featuring folk singer Jane Earhart, the leader of the Blaise Veluto collection, Nicholas Jenkins, and OSQ choir member and teacher, Rachel Tunnicliffe. Jane Earhart has been involved in Quebec City's music scene for the past 10 years. A lifelong musician, she composes and writes songs with a folk rock country sound. She currently forms a duo with Simon Paradis named Alexandra Lost, in reference to a Leonard Cohen song.
Born and raised in Moncton, New Brunswick. I moved to Quebec City in the year 2000, right after I finished my high school in Moncton. I was 18 years old and I wanted to see a new place, and I left with a friend of mine and we arrived in Quebec City and just fell in love with it, and I stayed here ever since.
Rachel Tunnicliffe's love of the French language and her studies in music led her to discover Quebec City, where she sings in the choir of the Orchestre Symphonique de Québec. She also teaches English as a second language at Collège Mérici and English diction at the Conservatoire de musique de Québec.
I was born on the outskirts of Birmingham. I lived there till I was 4 years old, and then we moved to a place in Warwickshire in the countryside. Grew up there, went to university in Chester, and then came over to Quebec, and first lived in Rivière-du-Loup for, I think it was 6 years, and then moved to Quebec City.
Nicholas Jenkins is the lead singer of the Blaise Veluto collection. The group's music makes for the perfect road trip soundtrack, offering an explosive folk rock country flavor mixed with a distinct retro pop sound.
I'm from Quebec City. My father's side is English, my mother's side's French. And I went to English school, St. Patrick's and St. Vincent. And I grew up here, yeah. So basically, I'm from Quebec City.
Had I heard of Quebec? I'd heard the name Quebec. I didn't really know anything about it. It's actually a funny story of how I ended up in Quebec, because I never actually chose to come to Quebec. I actually applied when I did my first degree. It was a combined French and music degree. And most people applied to go to France. And I thought, why go to France when I can go to France anytime? It's right next to England. So I decided to apply elsewhere. And I applied to Senegal. Yes, okay, not quite the same thing. And I was actually chosen second, despite the fact I didn't have anything that they wanted, because they actually wanted a graduate, and I was an undergraduate at the time. They wanted someone who was 20, I was 19. They wanted someone with teaching experience, I had none. But they kept me as second choice. And I waited all summer waiting to find out if I would be going there or not. And I finally called them. They said, oh no, the person we chose has gone. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do? I've canceled my grant. I don't have my place at university anymore. And they said, well, someone has decided not to go to Quebec. Would you like to go to Quebec? So that's how I ended up in Quebec.
Well, I love the size of the city. It's like it's not too big, not too small, very friendly people. I love the architecture. I love the culture. And yeah, it's just, I think it's probably the most beautiful city in Canada.
I like my, where I live now, Limoilou. I like that place. Big streets, place, lots of space. I like that. Parks, close by, I can ski. I can bike. Lots of little venues. Yeah, I like Limoilou the most.
I love Old Quebec. When I first moved to Quebec City, I moved to Old Quebec, and my first apartment was on Saint-Ursule. And so for me, coming to Old Quebec City, I always get very nostalgic about when I first moved here at the beginning of the 2000s. And then I lived more in Saint Jean Baptiste. I love that area, like around the church, and the Sacrilège is a place that I've played at a lot, and the Librairie Saint Jean Baptiste is kind of a legendary place too.
It's a gorgeous city. It has everything. What I love about Quebec City is that it's a big village. It's a city which you can walk to things. People are friendly. People get to know you. That's why I said it's like a big village. You don't feel like a number. You don't feel like a statistic. You really feel like a person and part of the community. Yes, okay, there's more of everything in Montreal, but we're not actually lacking anything in Quebec. So, and we're close to the countryside too. It's a wonderful place to live.
Before moving to Quebec, I didn't actually know that much about Quebec. When I first arrived here, I was actually very surprised that I had a hard time understanding the accent and a lot of the expressions people use, because I had learned French in Moncton, and it's a very different dialect. So yeah, I didn't actually know that much about Quebec before I moved here, but I obviously have been here for 22 years, so I've had time to learn. I really loved the lifestyle here, and I ended up enrolling in Université Laval. And I ended up doing a psychology degree there at Laval University. So that kept me here for a few years. And then when I was done university, I slowly started getting involved in the music scene, in the music community. So I was making a lot of friends and a lot of, playing in a lot of different projects. So that kept me here for even longer. But of course, I'm always happy to meet Anglophones in Quebec City. And whenever I meet Anglophones in Quebec City, we kind of have like an immediate bond, and we'll form kind of an immediate friendship because we have the English in common. I'm a professional musician, so I do music as work, but it's not my only job. I also work as a translator, doing a French to English translation. But yeah, it is definitely possible to be a professional musician in Quebec City. I began playing music as a child, actually. I started piano lessons when I was 6 years old and did classical piano lessons for about 11 years. And I was also involved in singing in choirs and stuff like that, in school and in church. And when I became a teenager, I got interested more in rock music and formed a rock band. And then when I left to come to Quebec City, I wasn't necessarily thinking of playing music, but after I'd been here for a few years, I started going out and seeing shows and stuff like that and meeting other musicians. So I started to get more involved in the music scene after being here for a few years. At that point, I was playing more guitar and was more interested in folk music. And I've always really loved writing songs. I started writing songs when I was a teenager. And in those early years in Quebec City, I really got into songwriting and playing at little bars in town around Old Quebec and Saint Jean Baptiste, Saint-Roch.
I play music because it's really the most satisfying thing I've ever did in my life. Yeah, it's just great where it brings me, like the satisfaction it brings you. It's never been topped. No. Like, it makes me really feel alive. Writing a new song, arranging a new song, recording a new song, and then it's out there. And then maybe sometimes I don't want to play them anymore, but that's another thing. What I prefer doing in music is, it's writing a song, arranging it, and recording it. That's my favorite part. Yeah, playing it is okay. Not my favorite bit, but once I do a lot of shows, it really gets fun. You get close to the band, and that's fun. But I prefer just inventing, creating.
Music is something that has always been a part of my life, but at some times much more than others. I grew up with music. My father played the piano and the guitar and sang. In fact, I wouldn't go to sleep unless he sang me to sleep quite often. So I really grew up with music. We have several professional musicians in the family, in fact, on Dad's side of the family. His mother, she taught piano, and there are other musicians as well in the family. And so I grew up hearing music. When I was 5 years old, I started playing the piano and singing. And then I tried the guitar and the recorders and the flute. And I kept playing the piano all the way through. And in the end, I ended up doing a music degree. Then after that, when I moved to Quebec, it actually left my life for a while because I didn't really know any musicians. I no longer had a piano. I did have my guitar, but that was about it. So for a long time, I didn't play. But then I met somebody who really was into music, and he actually bought me a viola because I had played viola as a second instrument. And he suggested that I buy an electronic piano. And so I gradually started back into music again. And now I'm so happy that music is back in my life again. I now sing in the OSQ choir, which is a wonderful experience. And I teach English diction at the Conservatoire. So I really enjoy that. That really brings everything back together again for me because I'm teaching English, which is what I'm trained to do, and the music side is back in my life as well. So I find that fascinating, and I really enjoy doing that. The OSQ, yes, there are many people from different countries. There are different languages that are there. Sometimes because they have visiting conductors as well, quite often. So sometimes they'll actually be working in English, not in French, it depends. It's a lovely melting pot. It's a lovely mixture of people, and I've met several of the musicians. And they're all lovely people. It's a wonderful experience to be with them. And the same thing in the choir as well. We have people from different places.
I remember butterflies in different colors and sizes.
I started playing music, I was maybe 13. I had my first guitar at my 13th birthday. But then, before that, music was all around. My father had music playing all the time. So yeah, that's where it comes from. And then once I played guitar, it never stopped, never stopped. I had bands, many bands. I always composed from the first like string I stroke. And yeah, I'm still here. I'm almost 40 now. My style of music is it's songs. Basically, I write songs, so I like sound and songs. So I mix them together, and I try to make something like coherent, like cohesive that you can like dance to or relate, or it's easy to sing, or hooks. You know, I try to work all around like just basic songwriting that like that. It's a hook, and you can. And then I search with this. I put sounds to them. I don't know, different. It's easier for me to write in English. It's more natural to write in English. I went to English school, so I always wrote and watched movies and read in English. So it's like more natural to write songs in English. But I speak French more naturally because we all speak French in Quebec City.
The songs that I write are mostly in English. For me, it's a lot easier to write in English since it's my mother tongue. But I have tried writing songs in French, and I actually, in 2015, I put out a French album, And I love singing in French. For me, it's a lot harder to write in French, so I do it less. But yeah, so I'd say like 90% of what I write is in English.
There's definitely an English community here in Quebec City, yes. There are many Anglophones. There are many people from other countries as well who consider English more their first language than French. People get together. There are various things like VEC, Voice of English Speaking Quebec. So people do get together in groups. There are Facebook sites for Brits in Quebec, for Anglophones in Quebec. So people do like to get together, but they also like to integrate into Quebec society too. I think it's possible to get by in Quebec just with English, but most people like to try and integrate and speak both languages, I think.
If there's something that you can deliver, get in the common.
Well, there's a very, very diverse musical scene here. There's a lot of classical musicians. There's a lot of jazz musicians. I've, of course, been more involved in the, I'd say, like the folk and the rock and pop music scenes. But it's very eclectic, and since it's not a huge city, a lot of the musicians, we all kind of know each other. People will like play in different bands, and the musicians it's kind of like a family of musicians, because you see each other going out and playing gigs, and there's only so many practice spaces in town and stuff like that, so everyone kind of ends up meeting each other. And I think it's just a great size city to have a nice music scene like that.
The cultural side of Quebec, I think, is wonderful. We have a very diverse musical culture here. I think there's something for everyone, and I'm so happy to see that there's a jazz culture, because I grew up with jazz, a lot of jazz. Dad's favorite music was jazz, so for me that was really interesting to see, especially young people playing jazz. And so I would follow different groups around, and we have jazz in the streets in the summer as well, and in various bars. So that was important for me. But then we've got the classical music too. We have the OSQ. We have les violons du roi. We have so many possibilities for music here in Quebec. I think we're exceedingly lucky.
The musical scene in Quebec is, I think, is really good. Yeah, it's boiling. With the Pantoum, it's a studio. Pantoum is a studio with where you can practice, record, and meet other musicians. So you can even eat a sandwich in the kitchen. But yeah, so lots of bands revolving around the Pantoum. So it's great if you want to make contacts, make friends, bands, whatever. Yeah, so it's there. It's like the place.
It's become really like a pillar for the music scene here. So I think as a city in Quebec City, we're really lucky to have that space, and that the people involved in that have put so much energy and into making that possible, because it really is kind of the centerpiece of the music scene here now.
Blaise Veluto collection is basically a collection of songs. That's what it is. It's a collection of songs that I wrote in a certain period of my life, and that's why it became the Blaise Veluto collection for my first album. And then it just stuck because I have 2 other albums. Like my second one, We Are Sunshine, and then this new one coming up. I almost found a name now, but I won't be saying it till I'm sure. Blaise Veluto is an extension of myself. I have maybe a few extensions. Yeah. Blaise Veluto is he's just a singer-songwriter for that band. the seeds of love in my brain. My body is down in pain. For some reason I'm slouching my back. Now everything's back on track. 'Cause you make me feel alive. Yeah, you keep me alive. Catch your name, my head is out playing games. When you're talking, your lips are proposing. Do you feel the same? Shoots out poking the edge of my mind. My body is covered in brine. For some reason I'm slouching my back. Everything's back on track. 'Cause you make me feel alive. Yeah, you keep me alive. So there you got it, you blew my cover. I'm all in it for love. Your hair is black and your eyes are green. You're dressed as white as a dove. How can I cope with the Spanish accent? Electric spinal attack. For a moment you got my train derailing. Now everything is back on track. 'Cause you make me feel alive. Yeah, you keep me aligned.